on radio and broadcast on Wolf Spirit Radio on the first and third Sundays of the month at 7 p.m. UK time. Simon actively encourages you to join the conversation by using the Ask Question menu link at the top of the page at wowwowwow.wolfspiritradio.com/listen. Please come early to ask your questions. Now, on with the show. The next 2 hours will be full of debate, interview guests and up-to-date news. Please join Simon in playing an active role. Connecting Consciousness Show. You're listening to Wolf Spirit Radio.
Hello, JP.
Hello, Simon. How are you? Good afternoon. Good evening. Good morning.
Very, very advanced echo system in the background there.
Oh, yeah. Well, because I had to do the new jingles, I added a little bit of sparkly spice to it. So, how have you been? It's been pretty much all...
I've been okay. Hopefully some people will have seen the latest interview that Kerry very kindly put up. I met Kerry to do an interview, and it was very interesting that morning I'd been subject to a form of psychic attack, maybe quite bad, and I was just absolutely determined to be well enough for her interview, which was, I think, about 2:00 in the afternoon. And we got a lot of interference, and I think I haven't watched the interview. I don't ever watch, once I've done an interview that I've done it, I don't watch it again. But people who have watched it have said to me that depending on which camera you're looking at, there does appear to be some form of interference. And we certainly were aware of a portal type that was trying to open. Whether this was for good or ill, we don't know. But certainly there was interference of some sort going on. And when you look, you can see, I think, the backdrop of the curtains, there appears to be wavy lines. There certainly was an energy, and both Kerry and I were aware of it, and others in the room. But it didn't stop the recording. It didn't have any effect on that. But what we did have, and I don't know that Kerry reported that, was that we did take a break to get some food in, and some of the team went off to get the food, and I was with Kerry, and we noticed all these blue flashing lights outside where we were. We actually weren't at my place. We were in another location. We thought it was better to do the interview in an independent location for safety's sake. And was a fire engine actually trying to get in to, this is a sort of a secure area with a gate. We're trying to force the gate, trying to force the door. And odd as people came back with the food, they turned the blue lights off and off they went. And Kerry said to me that she had done an interview somewhere else, and the fire brigade had all turned up there and said there was a fire, and they'd had to stop the interview and go off, and there'd been no fire at all. So when she saw the fire engine outside, she thought, oh my God, here we go again. But they couldn't get the gate open. It was one of these gated communities. It wasn't able to get access. Otherwise, I'm sure they would have come running in and said, everybody out, there's a fire. So that was actually very interesting. So that interview went ahead and was posted. It was really nice to see Kerry. I've got a lot of time for her. She's a real light warrior. She gets in there and gets stuck in. So that's posted, and that's out there now. Wanted to move to America now and say, of course, the president-elect, Donald Trump, takes office on Friday. So we are just less than a week away. That is important because at the moment we have what we can genuinely call no man's land. We have a president who's still in office, in name only, and a new one waiting to come in. And there's a vacuum. And we've got all sides now jockeying for position so that when the new president comes into office, whatever position they're in, that's the position they start from. So I personally can confirm there was a small gun battle in Manhattan. I had it reported to me from two sources. I'm not an American, so I don't know what Lower Manhattan means as opposed to Manhattan. One report was Lower Manhattan to me, and the other was Manhattan, that there was a gun battle between the CIA and the NSA in a secure telecommunication building, which has a deep bunker underneath, and it's actually in the major city, Manhattan. But the point I wanted to make about this battle, this very small gun battle that took place, was that it wasn't organization against organization. You can't say that the CIA was fighting the NSA or vice versa, but they were individuals within their respective security branches who were fighting a turf war because they'd taken something personal. So, for instance, it's not unusual to place large amounts of explosive threateningly under a building that belongs to one of the secret intelligence agencies and then do a tip-off or threaten them. But there was a particular bomb that had been defused, I understand. And so one element took it against another element and there was a fight. Now, whilst this is not unheard of, JP, it is highly unusual, and it's only occurring now because the old guard in White House are about to change and to be replaced by somebody who, doesn't dance to the same tune. So if anyone does hear about an alleged gun battle in Manhattan between the CIA and the NSA, the information I received was accurate, but was only less than 6 people. But nevertheless, that's true. In his presidential address, in terms of his first press address, which took place very recently, Trump actually mentioned that he'd been offered a $2 billion deal in Saudi Arabia and had turned it down. Again, this is another message to people that, he's not going to be blackmailed or he's not going to be bought. And again, in his press conference, it was actually a press conference, not a speech. In his press conference, he made it very clear that he was backed by generals and admirals. And he actually got into almost an argument with one of the guys from the press, and he accused the guy from the press of being a peddler of fake news. Now that's really important, because if the incoming president is now going to start accusing mainstream media of peddling fake news, we will see an increase in the public looking at the alternative news. So any organisation that is not funded by an established news, I think, is going to get a lot more attention now. Before Obama left office, he had signed some orders making it even more easy, that's the right word, for authorities to attack alternative news agencies. And I'm hoping that one of the first things Trump will do is say to the police and the authorities, leave them alone. That's really important. There have been an upsurge or an upswing in the number of independent radio stations or independent spokesmen and women who have found themselves being shut down. And that's literally within the last 3 to 4 weeks. And a name that may be known to some of our listeners, Harold Kautz-Vella, who I did actually listen to, who was giving a talk in London last year, very much talks about Magellan's disease and its connection to fourth dimensional entities. And whether we believe that that's the case or not doesn't matter. The fact is that he's on the point of being arrested and charged with sedition, which is a very strange term. And this is really because when you are a professional, whether you're a doctor, a scientist, an astronomer, You belong to an accredited body, and if you act in a way that the accredited body don't like, then the accredited body will not just throw you out of the club, but it will try and take legal action against you. The difficulty for Harold is that he is actually a scientist. He's a professional scientist, and he has gone public with, information, and they've gone for him. Now, I personally believe that this is because Obama has signed an act, I think it was 6 weeks ago, but it didn't come into effect until about 4 weeks ago. He signed an act that made it easier or it encouraged the establishment to go for people or organizations that don't repeat the accepted news. And I'll just finish on the Trump bit. I thought it was absolutely amazing and amusing as well. Trump took a question from a guy from the BBC, and the guy from the BBC was terribly upper middle class. Wasn't a white guy, and he was terribly upper middle class. And he stood up and he said his name. He said, "I'm from the BBC." And Donald Trump said, oh, there's another beauty. But because this guy was upper middle class, he thought that he was being paid a compliment by Donald Trump. And he said, "Oh, thank you very much." And it just shows this huge gap between people of the established media who haven't a clue what's going on. Their editor or their boss says to them, "Right, you go out and you attack this person." Or you go out, "This is the story we want. I don't want anything else. I don't want this, that, and I want this." So, of course, question after question that was being put to Trump wasn't about policy. What are your plans to do to get more jobs? What are your plans to cut tax? It was all about hacking, because what the establishment want to do is to try and get back at Trump because their person lost, and they're terribly bad losers. So I didn't get cross. I thought the more people that see this, then the more people are going to realise just what the real truth is. So that's important, because until Trump takes office, which is in another week, we could still see some rather nasty things taking place as both sides fight for a position of supremacy. So that's that. I wanted to say that anyone who's keeping an eye on alternative media will have seen an upswing in the number of sightings. I was aware of a couple before the weekend that have been reported to me, and then this weekend 2 more, not just in the States, but predominantly in the States. Lots of fairly close flying craft, which could be human military or could be off-planet. And that again is a warning, not to the people of the earth. This is a warning to certain governments or certain factions of government. So, it's like in the old days of Great Britain when the natives would be rebelling and they would send a gunboat. And what these off-planet entities do is they have a show of strength in the sky. It can be different factions. So that's what's going on at the moment. Messages are being sent to government. You get sort of a fleet of craft, alien craft in the sky, and that is a message. So we are, I'm not going to say...
They're definitely alien, though, Simon.
Most of them are. I think I've been aware of 6. 4 of them were definitely alien, 2 were not. And I'd say the 2 were not were designed to be up and flying, to be a counterbalance to whatever was expected. And often you'll see people have reported orbs or discs in the sky, sometimes being surrounded or escorted by helicopters, particularly, or jets. And this is either because that craft is being given an official welcome or an official, departure, or it's arrived and it's neither friend nor foe, but they are shielding it, keeping everything else away from it, giving it a flight path, if you like. Now, what's happening is that one arm of the military will put up its own back-engineered craft on Tuesday, then another arm of the military, which is antagonistic to that arm, will put its up. We've got these as well. And then you'll get something that's off planet. This is the game, if I can use that word, that's going on at the moment, because there's a power vacuum in the most powerful country in the world. I know America's bankrupt, but it's still the most powerful country in the world in terms of its ability to put pressure on foreign governments. That is weakening and eventually will go. So what I'm saying is the next 4 to 5 days are a bit destabilized. And once the new president takes office, then things will calm down. So thankfully, not too much to worry about just at the moment. So that's my update. I do want to obviously take questions. It's very important. That's what we do on this show. But I want to make time after our break, our first break, to talk a little bit about a project that I and Win and JP, you're very involved in this, and others. It's a barter trade platform, an electronic system, which we are hoping, if we can get the funding, to bring to the planet. So I'm going to talk after the break a little bit about that, and try and get that out into the human consciousness. So that's where we are at the moment, JP.
Okay. So, here we are. Now, let's get to the question. Right, okay, so let's ask this first question. Our first question is about going back to source. Simon advises to imprint oneself with the thought, I want to go back to source. Good. Yes, I do. But there is an aspect that is worried what might happen to me, my soul, when I go back to source. Do I, as an individual, cease to exist? Do I just dissolve and start anew? I feel the opposition to the thought of dissolving, actually.
Right. No need to worry. If we go to source, then I can't think of anything much better. A cup of tea and a chocolate biscuit sounds pretty good at the moment, but going to source is the best thing that you can do for most people. You're not dissolved or discontinued or zapped and started afresh. Your history is your history, and that's what will appear in the Akashic records, unless one has the connection with source to have them removed. Most people don't have that right. So, and you wouldn't want it to remove it anyway. So if you have a history, that is your history and has made you what you are, because if you lose that history, you will lose that learning. So a good example, and many people on the planet come here from a fourth dimensional phase and end up working in the Vatican as a black magician. And they do that for a while and they realize that it's awful and evil. Not all of them, unfortunately, but many of them. And so they go through maybe 3 or 4 centuries of incarnating on the planet and moving further and further away from that until they end up a very independent, spiritual, very psychic, but a very spiritual person. And they've completely moved away from where they were 500, 600, 700 years ago or more. Now, that person is the person they are today because of the experiences they occurred to them, but the learning and understanding that came from that. So if you went to source and you had all that wiped out, then what the heck would be all the point of the 2,000 or 3,000 or million years of incarnation? Because it would all be for nothing. So no, if we go to source, what happens is we get given the choice to break the pattern that we've been in and go somewhere else. So for instance, let's take somebody who's 5th dimensional. Could be a Pleiadian, could be an Andromedan, could be someone from Arcturus, plenty of others. And that 5th dimensional person is created like we all are by source and has a life on many planets and then finally finishes off on Earth and goes through life here and then manages to break through the net, finds a hole, gets through and succeeds to get into source. Now that person can go anywhere now. That person might say, I want to go to the 6th dimension or the 7th dimension, or I want to go back to Earth. The point about going to source is that you have won the right to reconnect with your creator, and therefore you can be catapulted to anywhere you want to. So you still retain all of your memory, all of who you are, but you are just elevated to the next level. And so please have no fear. Going to source is the best thing you can do.
So, thank you. All right. So, meanwhile, actually, this one's about an astral assault. So, it's a long one. All right. It's from Nate. It's probably Nate. All right. I've had this hello JP and Simon. I've had this problem occur frequently over the last year. When I'm laying in bed and go to sleep, I get an intense pulse of pressure inside my head. It's rather aggravating and wakes me up sometimes. It seems to be intelligent, or at least defensive, since I can focus on it, and the pulses, or attacks as they seem to be, increase in volume until it's a constant pulsating rhythm that's very unpleasant. It's always seemed to be some sort of artificial and mechanical technology within my aura. It's never acted on its own until recently. I thought about the pulsating sensation about 2 weeks ago while I was wide awake during a conversation with my girlfriend, and this time something seemed to be attempting to take me over somehow. I felt a strong squeezing in the back part of my head, in my brain, and felt very uncomfortable every time she would say certain things, which were of a spiritual, psychic nature. They were very good things she was describing. But something did not like her speaking of such things and caused a lot of anxiety within me and as I listened to her. This feeling was accompanied with a bad case of the heebie-jeebies or the creeps. I had to stand up against the wall because of the sensation that someone was standing behind me. Throughout my life, I've had strange sensations that others were there with me or standing behind me looking over my shoulder. I've been caught a glimpse of shadows out of the corner of my eye during these episodes. I never let any of this bother me but this last time was too much and kind of pissed me off. I became ill right after, which I'm just getting over. Almost I never get sick or ill. I'm being attacked by an entity. Am I being attacked by an entity, or is it more simple than that? I don't think anything would confirm its existence and give itself away with something like me. I don't think anything would confirm its existence and give itself away with someone like me. This last episode seemed like some force was attacking me. Please tell me what you think this is and what I should do to banish such things from my life. Thank you for all you're doing for humanity. Love, Nate. So, long question.
Oh, that's the thing. Yeah. So, yeah, it's fairly classic. Actually, it's a fairly clear-cut case. Negative is obviously negative. Negative force, and we can look in a minute what that will be. A negative force will attempt, in the first instance, to take you out of your body. So to take your energy self from your physical body. If you fight that and resist that, which is clearly what's happening here, because the first part of what was written is exactly that. Some people describe it as a juddering sensation, some people call it vibrational, some people just say it's very slight, and other people say it's like being on a flight, because everyone's energy and reception energy is different. So if something is trying to lift you out of your body on several occasions, which might be over, 20, 30 years of your life, and is failing, then it will go for a direct assault. Now, the person who wrote in very, very helpfully gave us detail, and what they wrote was that they stood against the back of a wall because they thought somebody was behind them. That's really helpful, because what we call that is an overlay, and it's not a million miles from what David Icke, many years ago now, was trying to alert people to, but back in those days it was just too much for most people to grasp. What happens when an entity cannot remove you in your body because you're just too spiritual or you're just too strong, it will attempt to rest over you. If you would take a sheet or a handkerchief and you drop it over an object, it will drop over that object, and broadly it will follow the lines of that object. If you were to drop it over a jug or a vase or something, it will form around it. So what they'll try and do is drop onto your auric field, and if they can't penetrate the auric field, they will drop around it, and they'll always attack you at the back. All of them, whether they are fourth dimensional entities or whether they are interdimensional demons, simply because on the physical world here, our eyes are at the front of our head. Now, when you're psychic, you will normally have 75% psychic visibility to the front, and the remaining 25% is at the back. Some people have 50-50 or what have you, but the majority of people on the planet at the moment, the psychic capability is reduced behind them, but is in front of them because of where the third eye is. So you will always be attacked from the back. That tells me that something is trying to connect with him and take him over. Fortunately, it's very classic. It's very common. Because he's aware of it, I think it's a guy, because he's aware of it, he's right that he's not going to try and open a dialogue with him. Often these things will try and do a deal with you. And I suggest, well, the good news, just change the subject very slightly, but we're answering the question. The good news is that I'm on the verge of going through lots of people who wanted bookings and start getting back on the booking lines again. So I would suggest that he emails in. He will have to take his place because there are other people who have emailed and I'm going to be on them. But I think it would possibly benefit him to have a one-to-one chat with me, and I can give him some specific individual ways in which he can help himself. But to do that, I would have to learn a bit about him, because what these rather pathetic entities do is they attempt to find what I term a back door. We talked earlier about people who've been magicians, but if you in past lives have been around something, done something, you will have awareness, because it's part of what we learn. And we should love every part of us. But nevertheless, there'll be a part of the frequency or an element which something negative could try to, pick the lock or try and get in. And that's what they always do. And if you can just bar that, metaphorically speaking, then you can very simply stop it. So, very good question. Good because there are more people out there than you would imagine self-type attacks. So thank you.
Yeah, we get an awful lot of that. Simon, I'm going to need to reconnect with you. The line is terrible. So just re-pick up the phone in a second, please. And I'm just going to call Simon back just to get that. Probably just get the Wi-Fi sorted out and get him connected to us in real time. There we go. Simon, you're back with us now.
Test.
It's still a bit pretty
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Are you close to the Wi-Fi? Could you move closer to the Wi-Fi? You're on it.
I'm on the same machine that we've used before when you said this is the best of you.
Maybe they've gotten to this one. All right, so let me try one more time. Third time lucky. One moment. Let's try. Okay.
Are you there?
Yeah. It's still a bit ropey. Anyway, let's crack on. Okay. You can hear me. Am I, as they say, wall to wall? No distortion or anything?
No, it's fine. I don't have any problem here at all.
Right. Okay. Here we go. This is from Destiny Calls. I like that. Dear Simon and JP, thank you both so much for all your inspiring work. My question is regarding the 221-year-old mystery of Oak Island in Nova Scotia. For the last few years, two brothers, Marty and Rick Legina, have been trying to uncover the mystery. Do you know what is buried there, who buried it, and why? And are the Knights Templar involved?
Is this there are so many things on this planet, believe it or not.
Oak Island is that, it's like a shaft. There's a shaft that goes right down and it... Like what?
Is this the treasure chest? The supposed treasure chest of the pirates' gold?
Oh, possibly. People do all sorts of things with that. But Oak Island is supposed to be this place that was,
This is where they built several teams or several groups have gone down and they've extended the shaft. And I think at so many feet they found some iron and some metal, which they thought might have been a treasure chest. And then they went beyond it. And it's rock and then clay, but it keeps flooding all the time. Is this the one?
Yeah, the flooding one. That's the one. Yep.
Okay, good. Okay. I'm
so
getting the right
the question is,
then.
what is buried there? Who buried it, and why?
Right. It is Knights Templar. And originally it was a sacred object. The sacred was removed and a treasure chest was placed there, simply because they wanted people to dig and find treasure, and it would then not lead them on to the Knights Templar connection. And I think, from what I've been told, that the treasure was collected a long time ago. I think there was a concerted effort in the 1930s, and then again in the 1970s, but by then the treasure had already been found and taken. So it's originally a sacred object that was hidden there, that the Knights Templars had lost, or one faction or somebody broke away from it and hid a certain object, and then the group came back and reclaimed it. So I hope that helps.
Do you know what the object is?
Yes, but I'm not going to give that out over air, because it's one of the controlling objects that there are a number of objects that on their own don't do anything. But when you place these objects together in a set pattern, and then you have a certain resonance, one resonates, which then activates the other. A bit like Stonehenge, if you can set one stone resonating, that's why they have the cross lintels on the top. It passes the resonation to the next one and the next one and the next one, and then you form a circle of energy. Tesla would understand this really well. So it's one of the objects that's yet got to be battled over. There are a number of objects hidden in places that might surprise people, and the time is coming where these objects will have to be fought over. So that's as far as I go with it at the moment. Good question.
Very good question. The thoughts of ancient technology come to mind. Anyway, Shirley says, my question, very simple question, is what dimension are the mantids from that you connect through your portal? Thanks for your work.
Fourth dimension. Higher fourth. It's perhaps a bit confusing, but when we talk about a dimension, there are layers to a dimension. Perhaps it's like lower Manhattan and upper Manhattan. It's all part of Manhattan, but one part is perhaps considered a bit down at heel, a bit seedy, and one is a bit more upmarket. While I'm joking, it's not a million miles from the truth with the fourth. The lower fourth is a very dense, heavy, resonating energy, whilst the upper fourth, whilst it is still fourth dimensional, is a much lighter, and it's a bit like milk and cream. The milk sinks to the bottom and the cream rises to the top. And so it is with energy, that which is at a higher vibrational rate will seek to move upwards in a hierarchical manner. So the reptilians, the Dracos, are in the lower fourth dimension, and they are on the verge of creating a universe, an energy dimension within an energy dimension. In other words, a bubble. They're going to be trapped within a dimension within a dimension, and there's no escape from that. Whereas the mantids are in the higher fourth and are seeking to move on to the fifth. So hope that helps.
Good. Dimensions. Yeah, I mean, it's like, this is the emotional plane, isn't it? The fourth dimension. And,
yes.
And so there are emotions that are lower emotions and higher emotions. There's love and all those, and is that their path to, travel up through the emotional plane? And is this why the Greys are wiped out? Because they tried to get away from emotions? Are they also fourth? Sorry, I'm asking crazy questions, but how do the Greys relate to the reptilians and the Mantids?
I don't think the questions are crazy. If you ask me about flat Earth, then the crazy question would be quite appropriate.
It's the crazy question flag.
Crazy questions. No, you asked about the Greys. I will just remind, newbies to the show that there are many different sorts of Greys. There are the Hollywood Greys, the ones that they wish to program everybody with so that when they do a false flag alien invasion, they are the ones that, your key ring, your fridge magnet, your sticker, your t-shirt, that is the alien that people are being brainwashed with, because that is what they expect, and that's what they're going to use if they go down the false flag alien invasion. That's why every damned alien you see is a grey with the big almond eyes. Well, that's only one aspect of the grey race. That almond-eyed alien has no soul in its body at all. It is a clone. It is electronically, psychically commanded, and therefore it does not have emotions. All it has is self-preservation. So if you ran at a grey with a spade or a shovel or a pick, it would have the emotion of self-preservation, but it wouldn't have the emotion of love, understanding. That's why when people are abducted, partly, a grey won't have any compassion, or if they get asked questions, why are you doing this to me? Because the grey doesn't understand that. It doesn't have any connection. I'm doing it because I've been told to do it. You would be in the fourth dimension with no hope of redemption unless you can challenge your own creation. But if you don't have a soul in your body, as far as I'm concerned, you're not a life form. I don't call anything that is devoid of a soul a life form. I call it a robot or something like that. Remember, in most grey alien spacecraft, only one member of the crew on the flight deck has a soul. The others don't need a soul. So in the craft that crashed at Roswell, the one that was mostly complete, there were, I think, 6 or 7 in the crew, but only the pilot, who was a female, had a soul. All the rest had no soul. They didn't need it. They were just there to control the machines, the consoles that they were operating on. So they don't actually count as far as I'm concerned. But if you have a soul and then you are in the fourth dimension, you are staring at oblivion down the barrel of a gun. And the Mantids and others in the fourth dimension realized this very, very early on and said, we're not going to get caught like the reptilians and go down this trap because it's a dead ender. We're not going anywhere. Whereas the reptilians, still to this day, are glued to their lifestyle and their belief systems. They're not in a position to challenge them. So you have a lower fourth dimension, which has some greys, from different star systems, not just one star system. You have Draconis reptilians, and there's 2 other forms of reptilians as well down there. But then you have the vast majority of the fourth dimension, which has some greys in it, some reptilians, and a wide range of humanoids, and of course the mantis. And once, or if, this subsection of the fourth dimension buds off, and forms a dimension within a dimension, the reptilians are absolutely trapped. They will not be able to evolve. And, let's face it, that's what we want them to do. We want them to learn and evolve, but they'll be done forever. And so a lot of the wheeling and dealing and shenanigans that have been taking place on the planet over the last 5 or 6 years are Draconis reptilians attempting to extricate themselves from the dead end they're in without losing face. So that's a really good question, and we could go on, but we mustn't. So thank you for the question.
Maybe we should do some other shows, like when you got some time, we do some other.
You say this every time. Every time we get on, we get a subject that's like really meaty.
I hope somebody's making notes which ones we should do.
or very vegetable-y, because there are lots of us that don't eat meat. So when you get us, it's really good. We're made aware that there are topics that are not being covered really to the depth on the alternative media. There's just not being covered. So maybe what needs to happen is some of the listeners need to write in with their top 2 or top 3, and then you could just choose 1 or 2, and then we could do a special show.
That would be great. That would be awesome, because like you say, there are so many different. I mean, like one of the things that is currently like squizzling around in my head, like the difference between the Draco, dragons, the Anunnaki, Anu, Enki and Enlil, those guys, are they all the same thing, being, or did I just list out 4 different races?
Well, I think that's your first question. So why don't you do this? Why don't you just...
Somebody make me a note, please. Vanessa, can you make me a note of what, let's do the reptilian show.
Do a call out to the audience and see what they want. And then I'll be happy to go with what the majority want. That'd
be awesome. And, so anytime you've got some, available time, we could even do a sort of an off-air recording, if you don't have the time.
Whatever's best for you, JP, whatever you want to do.
Okay. Right. Thank you. Right. Let's move on, and then we'll work with this. Right. So, okay. just to move on. All right. So we've mentioned the Greys, the reptilians, and now Simon Parks. Dear Simon, this is from Defeat NWR. The Archons. To me, they are like a catalyst that is forcing this change in human consciousness on Earth. Would the same consciousness shifts have occurred if they had never manipulated the reptilians, who go on to manipulate us both physically and spiritually? What an awesome question.
Yeah. The standpoint that I'm looking at, I don't know of a time before the Archons were around. There was, but it's such in the dim and distant past. And all of us on this planet and everywhere else that are, connected by the decisions of others have made us what we are. So if we were to take the Archons out of the equation, would the reptilians have done what they did? And if the reptilians hadn't done what they did, would humanity now be in a position to break free? Wonderful, wonderful film called It's a Wonderful Life, which I think had James Stewart in it and was made in 1947. One of my favorite all-time films, black and white film. And in it, an angel is sent down to show James Stewart that if he hadn't done what he did, or if he hadn't been born, this is how the world or the town he lived in would have been. And it's taken and shown, and it's hell on earth. It's dreadful. And what the angel is saying to him is, look, if you individually hadn't been here, this is what would have happened. So if we take out any individual in history, the effect is incredible. So the Archons have a right to live and evolve and attempt to be better. Everything has the right to do that. But what we have to do, I think, is to say, does the good outweigh the evil? And then who is to say what is, what outweighs what? Who is the right to do that? And only Source, as far as I'm concerned, has the right to make that judgment. And what Source tends to do is say, I created this. I created it. It's not a zoo. I don't go in and prod the bear with a stick or deprive it of food on Tuesday and give it food on Wednesday and see what it does. I created it, and I will now walk away and observe it from a distance, because to do anything else is to artificially change the consciousness decision of each living creature. So if we were to take away the Archons, humanity might either be loads better, we might be absolutely fantastic, or we could be in a position that we could never evolve quickly. So I think what we've got to do is to say, this is where we're at, this is what we've got, right, this is who we are, what do we need to do, knowing what we know. And I think that it is not helpful to say, what if, or if this hadn't happened, because we've got to live for the present, we've got to love who we are and what we are, and say, right, this is what we have to do. It's a good question, but I wouldn't spend too much time debating it because it's negative, because it's, this is where we are. This is what we've got. If you have a book and it's got 100 pages in it and you say, well, I wonder what would have happened if I'd never written page 57. But you've got page 57. There's no point in thinking like that. So I hope that's a helpful answer.
Okay, thank you. Yes. Now, on to earthly matters, very dark earthly matters. From Patty M. It is reported that DynCorp performs a crucial step in child trafficking and oil pipeline. DynCorp owner Steve Feinberg is an advisor to Trump. Rex Tillerson is also said to be involved. Is Trump complicit in the child trafficking pipeline, or is he unaware, or what?
Right. There are a number of people around Trump who I wouldn't have to my house to sit down to have tea and cake. As far as I'm concerned, Mr. Trump is not a Satanist and hasn't involved himself in anything like that. What Trump has done has been money mad. That's where he's thrown all his energies: business, power, building an empire. And in fact, it was a great shock to many people when they realized just how huge his company is. And in fact, Mr. Trump has more money than when Mr. Rockefeller became vice president. So I think Trump has thrown all his energies into a very 3D business world, which actually puts him in a very strong position to put business America back on its feet. But there are a number of people around Mr. Trump who don't have quite that clear-cut background. The difficulty for an incoming president who is not part of the elite, let me make that clear, Trump is not part of the elite. Yes, he's an elite businessman. Yes, he's elite because he's got billions of dollars, but he's not part of the political elite. He's not welcomed by them. So in order to gain access to meetings with individuals who are part of that group, he's felt that he's had to engage people who've got a foot in both camps, and that they act as a conduit, they act as a pipeline for him, there's an in-jokes there, to communicate with these people who you can't push away. You're talking about not just an organization that's got multi-billions of dollars, but you've got an organization that probably, and most people won't know this, many of these organizations have private armies. I don't mean gangs of people, I mean armies. They actually have several hundred or thousand private armies, men who are ex-military, either mercenaries or from the regular armed forces, and they are contracted to carry guns for these corporations. Now, there are individuals out there who run companies that are as big as small countries. So you've got an incoming president who is not privy to a lot of what's going on because he himself hasn't taken part in any of those things. He will, in his case, feel he needs to engage with people who can make that happen. So that's it. I'm not excusing it. That's a situation. And what we need to do is to do away with all this horrible, evil so that that doesn't happen. Then you wouldn't need to engage with people like that. You could just be upfront and open. But at the moment on this planet, that's not possible. So that is the reason that there are a number of people who are advising Trump who have a foot in both camps. So I hope that's a helpful answer.
Yeah. My short answer would be you keep your friends close and your enemies closer, as the old saying goes. So that he can keep an eye on whatever anyone's doing. All right. So this is from Maria. And taking it to the east here, hi Simon, is there a danger that Kaliningrad will be attacked from NATO troops in Poland?
Not if President Trump's got anything to do with it. Remember that NATO, 75% of NATO's wages and budget comes from America. So NATO, like the United Nations, can't do anything unless Americans authorize it. Angela Merkel in Germany does not want a war on her doorstep. And you remember last year, I and many other commentators kept people up to speed with what on earth was going on. That's why there was an attempt to kill Angela Merkel or attempt to kidnap her last year. Germany does not want a war on its borders. Poland, Czechoslovakia, we don't want a rerun of the Second World War. It's not going to happen. What is more likely is that somebody who's completely round the twist, completely mad, will attempt to put false information out, which would appear to threaten Russia, and the hope that Russia will literally come across the border. And they've tried it several times in the last 2 years, attempting to get President Putin to order some form of military incursion, which then these people can claim as an aggression of war. No, NATO is not going to do that.
That was longer than a semicolon. Right. Andrea.
What, you gone to sleep?
I was in the kitchen filling the kettle. Of course. Dear Simon, thank you, and we hope you're well. Who was in the base under the North Pole, and who attacked it? And who is at the base under the South Pole? So, polarizations.
Oh, somebody's looking at my website. Thank you, very kind of you. When I asked my webmaster to very kindly put my updates on there, I always wonder how many people actually go to the website and keep an eye on it. We had what was reported as an earthquake. That's how it would show up on our seismic reading. I think the first one was about 4.8 on the Richter scale. And then a few days later, another one, 100. This is the North Pole, 100 miles due north of the first one, much bigger at 5.2 on the Richter scale. And this was a measuring station in America, which is not controlled by the elite, because all the elite monitoring stations were told not to report it. Now that immediately makes you not just suspicious, it makes you aware of what's going on. There are two possibilities. I got 2 bits of information. Actually, I got 3. Let's be honest. 2 saying one thing and 1 saying another. So with all my rule, if I get 2 down the same road, I'll go with it. And that was that an underground base in the North Pole area was taken out. And then a few days later, 3 days later, 100 miles north, another one was taken out. So I got 2 independent reports of that, but then a third report came in saying that it wasn't an underground base in the North Pole, it was submarines. Now, I find it difficult to understand how a nuclear-powered submarine could be destroyed without a massive show on the ice. So my hunch goes with underground bases. Certainly the independent seismic measuring station said it was 15 miles under the Earth's crust, which is pretty deep, but is just about the right temperature for reptilians. Remember, reptilians need heat. They don't need oxygen, but they certainly need heat. So I believe that a semi-active base and a base that was mothballed. That's the 100 miles north of the semi-active base were taken out. That is the North Pole. The South Pole, well, that's, we need a radio show just on that, because that is really all about Hitler. That's all about, the, splinter group of Nordics. It goes right back to, Lemuria. That's a huge story. So, maybe we can make that as one of the special topics for one of the special shows.
Yes, indeed.
But certainly the North Pole is the one that is in the news at the moment. And it looks to me like underground bases have been completely and utterly taken out. Okay.
When you talk about, was it 150 miles? Or
no,
15. 15 miles. Okay, so 15 miles below the surface is likely to be a cavern that is potentially accessible by submarine, and maybe there's a base there as well. So it may be all of the above.
I hadn't considered that, and now that you've said that, I've just run it through. That is highly probable, simply because in 1945, when Hitler escaped to South America by submarine, in this particular lavish house that was by a lake, they built submarine pens where the submarine could come in from the major ocean through to this lagoon, this lake, and also in Rhode Island in America, Montauk. There was a special submarine pen. And
yes.
Nazi U-boats were arriving in 1943, 1944, 1945 with equipment to help to build Montauk. So you may well have hit upon the truth, and that would explain why 3 separate security bits of information which appear not to match could match. Thank you.
Brilliant. So next. Oh, right. Okay. Right. Okay. So this is from Neil. Dear Simon, on Wolf Spirit Radio about 12 months back, you were led through a meditational process similar to meditation, apparently to protect all children from serious harm. In case it jogs your memory, I remember your concern that your cats were feeling worried about you during your course of your live meditation. So you asked someone to stroke one of your cats. Please therefore say exactly how that particular focus served to protect, explaining its mechanics, for I don't understand how it works. If any kind of result was sought by engaging in this, then to what extent was it successful? Well, does that make sense?
The question makes sense.
Yeah, okay.
But I do not believe that I would have asked anybody to psychically stroke one of my cats.
Yeah. I don't remember that bit.
I'm trying to imagine. There could have been. I wonder if the person is confusing it with one of the earlier MASH videos that were done, where I was supposedly going through a regression. This is about 6 or 7 years ago, and I was psychically attacked. And one of my cats jumped up onto my lap because it was aware of what was going on. It was the white cat, and because we're quite close. And then I came up for attention and I stroked the cat. Now that is, I believe, what's happened. Now the question, I don't know where that question has come from. So there you go.
Yeah, Germany. They have very long memories. Okay, well, you want to move on from that?
Yeah, absolutely. I've answered it.
All right. So this is from Jai Joe Matthew. I don't even know how to pronounce this. All right. I wish both of you a happy and prosperous new year. I have a Cintamani stone. Cintamani. And recently read, whenever a Cintamani stone is planted in the soil somewhere around the planet, a huge angelic being is anchored in that spot. What would you advise me to do? Thank you for your hard work and dedication.
I may know this by a different name. sometimes ancient Indian or Veda scripts will refer to sacred objects which can be buried in the ground and can be activated at a later date. When we receive something, we have to know the provenance of what we receive. Very, very dangerous to obtain something and not really know where it's come from and accept it into your life as holy and pure, and then go and do something with it only to find you brought a Trojan horse, into the earth. So with any object that you intend to place, it's much better if you take something that's not tainted either one way or the other, and then you put your good intent into it yourself. So you put your own intention into that object, and then you place that object where you feel it will do the most good. So there are people who walk past the Bank of England and they drop crystals which they've put good intent into, not because they want to make money, but because they want to counteract the evil force that is money. There are people who will go to a holy spring and place objects because they want to enhance that spring. Or if something's threatened, we had the big battle with the pipeline, and sacred objects can be buried to strengthen the earth or call energies help to that location. I'm all for that. All I'm saying is you don't put anything like that unless you know exactly what it is and you know that it's containing good energy. And the best way to do that is to put your own good energy into it. Don't rely on someone else to do it for you. Thank you.
Okay, a quick Wikipedia reports that the Cintamani is the wish-fulfilling jewel in the Hindu and Buddhist traditions.
It was in...
Yeah, so it's said to be some of the equivalent of the the holy, one of those Mali jewel images found in Buddha. Anyway, so there we go. There we go. May your wishes all be fulfilled. There we go. Lauren, you've talked in the past that many souls have incarnated into the Pleiades in order to prepare them for life on Earth.
Yes.
My question is, what would be the personality traits of someone that has bypassed that whole process and come straight to Earth?
Shock, disorientation. Many of these people commit suicide. Many of them live a life like a hermit. Many of them have nervous breakdowns or mental breakdowns, because when you come from a pure setting and you come to this place, the shock of it is just too much. If you come from a place where you have good intentions and you believe in, I'm going to go down to that planet and they're going to want to hear what I've got to say. They're going to want to do this. I'm going to be given a fair chance to speak, or once I show them the way forward, they're going to do it. And of course, these people come here and they open their mouth or they try and do something and they're immediately jumped on and attacked. And they think, but why is this? And they cannot get their head around it. A number of people who are animal rights activists who come here and have come from Lyra. And because Lyra being six-dimensional, the right to life is very important. The majority of animal rights peoples are Lyrans, or, I'm using the term lightly and with humour, reformed reptilians. Remember, a reformed reptilian is every bit as helpful to the planet as a pure Lyran. And these people are just disgusted and appalled at what the vast majority of humans accept as normal. So if you go to the Pleiades and you say, teach me, show me to be resilient, show me what I must expect. Lyrans have indomitable souls. But what you need is that firewall between the organic feelings of your mind what you experience, and the demands or the trueness of your soul. And if you don't have that firewall, the one is totally at shock with the other. So people go to the Pleiades because the Pleiadian people are the most successful people, human group for surviving. They give as good as they get. And about 4 years ago, I got into hot water because I said, Pleiadians aren't all sweetness and light. Excuse me. The Pleiadians are tough. And of course, lots of people took it the wrong way, as usual, got up on their high horse and, Pleiadians, this, that and the other. But that's why Pleiadians are strong. That's why we talk about every other word is a Pleiadian this. That's why everybody wants to be a Pleiadian, because they are perceived to be survivors. They're perceived to be strong. You can't stand on the edge of the sea in a sandcastle waving a flag if you're built of sand, because the sea will just cut your legs from under you and wash you away. You need to be made of some sterner stuff. The Pleiadian group is. Now that's not to devalue Lyran group or Arcturus group or any other group, but history has shown that different humanoid groups have gone to the Pleiades to say, I'm going to Earth, I'm on a mission, I've volunteered for this, please give me some pointers. And they're given pointers and then off they go to Earth. So I hope that's a good answer.
Indeed, yes. My feeling is that, I've started to get memories about this, and that it's basically the Pleiadians are the Lyrans who decided that they would do something about it, and this is what I'm starting to remember, and so went forward in time to a place where there are no reptilians anymore, and then started to figure out how to become a super soldier. So, what did you say?
I can go along with some of that. But I just wanted to make it clear that the Lyrans are the most purest form of humanity. Because if you put a Lyran next to a Pleiadian, whilst the Pleiadian is obviously physically strong, it is the Lyran that's indomitable. So give me a Lyran at any time in terms of connection to source. So one wouldn't work without the other. Anyway, I think it's tea time, JP.
I think it is, and I think it's time to walk the dinosaur, don't you?
You lost me.
And welcome back to Connecting Consciousness with myself, JP, and your host, Simon Parkes. Well, so you said there was something you wanted to talk about after the break, so we've broken.
You sound like a school teacher, JP.
Now, Mr. Parkes.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah.
Right, okay. Yes, I do. I had a message from down the pipe, as we could call it, saying that it was time to perhaps talk more about a world without money and trying to get that through into the consciousness. But we do live in a world of money, and that's the world we have at the moment. So this is the right time, first of all, to thank people for sending their donations to me. And, it's about giving me dignity. If I didn't have the donations from people, then the system would literally have me by the ear holes. If I didn't have donations to keep me afloat, to do the work I do, to keep independent, then the system would obviously get its claws into me. And I'd soon, I think, be stopped from doing what I do. And that's why it's so important for people, whether they just give me £1, $1, or whatever it is. It's all grateful, and it's all about preventing the establishment from manipulating me through money. So I'm just going to read through some people who have helped me out over Christmas, actually. So Blue Art Exinja, Sheena, Rebecca, Ditmar, Sanjay, Frederick, Michael, Tom, Sean, John, Theodore, AC Futures, Dawn, Ada, Chris, Margaret, Murray, Catherine, Kim, Bruno, Kurznoff, Eva, Joanne, Fristran, Michelle, Mikhail, Candice, Joanne, think I might have said Eva, but Eva again anyway, Martin, Logo, Sophia and Jackie. There were others. I can only go so far with my radio show to thank you, but anyone who's donated over Christmas period, thank you for keeping me independent and out of the clutches of the system, because I have absolutely no doubt that the system would love not just me, but many people like me would like to control us. So there we go. That's me saying thank you.
Thank you, Simon, because it's really good. That's a really good point, is that you can, if the more you're out of money stress, the more you can tell the truth without having, without being influenced at all.
Yes.
Same to me.
It is for all of us, isn't it, JP? Because if you rely on a system to support you financially, because they will come in, if I was down on my knees, somehow the system would come in and say, oh, we'd like to give you this handout. It might be some guy from the Vatican. I'm being deadly serious. Some guy from the Vatican might just suddenly appear on my doorstep and say, we hear you're in a bit of a difficult situation. You've got a parking ticket, you can't pay for it, or you've got a phone bill you can't pay for, and we would like to give you $1,000 or £1,000. And you say, oh, that's fantastic. That's going to keep my head above water. Thank you ever so much. I accept that. And then 2 weeks later, we don't really like you talking about this subject. Can you drop this topic? And that's what they do. They hook you, and then they start to exert pressure. Because people donate to you, JP, and to me and to others, it gives us that freedom to carry on being independent. And, that's what I want people to understand. It allows us to do the work we do. All right. So I wanted to talk about money on this planet. People who are old hands at this know that money from Babylon had a spell placed on it. But people who have just come to the topic recently will be quite horrified to learn that when the money concept was created, it was purely and simply to control humanity. If you listen to people's conversations in the bar, in the pub, on the bus or the train, it's all about really how much money you earn and what job you do, or what you did at work today, or you were late at work, or this and that. Money and work dominate conversations. And that's deliberate, because it's about a control system. You are meshed into a system, and we have money that controls us. So you have money, you put it in the bank. Now you are fearful that if anything happens, you'll lose your money from the bank. And you're continually looking at how much money you've got, what you've spent it on, and whether you can afford a holiday, whether you can afford this bill or that bill. And that's what dominates your decision making. So love and light begins to reduce, and how much money have I got? Can I afford this? Can I do that? So audience will not be shocked to learn that Win Keach and I work together on a number of projects. Yes, we're independent, but there are a number of projects we've worked together on, and we are well advanced in a particular project which wants to move away from the cash system that we have on this planet, which is a Babylonian spell-driven system, and we want to move towards a barter and trade system. Now, the purists amongst us, quite rightly, will say all money, all trade is wrong, and I would agree with them, but you cannot move a planet that's been God knows how many thousands of years with a money system. You can't move it to a world without it in one go. You have to go gradually. Now, there is an economic crash coming. It's not just me saying it. It's not just commentators and the alternative. It is actually mainstream people, and I've given proof of that on these radio shows by giving mainstream newspapers writing about it. So if we have a financial situation coming which is going to affect the paper money and the electronic money, Win and I decided that we needed something that would survive this and give ordinary people give ordinary people a real ability to maintain a standard of living. So what we've got is an app for your phone which could only be created by Win Keach, because of his, he was the creator of all the secure encoding for credit and debit cards called chip and pin. So every time a person puts their debit card or credit card into a reader, it was Win Keech who created the encryption service that sends that information electronically to the bank. No one else on the planet could do it. He did it. And I don't think he'd mind me saying that he had a visit from the National Security Agency, who came all the way from America to Britain, to say to him, we can't crack your code. Can we do a deal with you? Now, the deal basically was, we'll leave you alone if you tell us. Well, I don't know what deal he did. I think he just walked away from it because Win is a very upright person. But the point is that he created that. So he's got an encryption code for this new app that no one else can have. And the way it would work in a brief way is that if you have an individual person and you have 6 eggs, we're just going to be very simple, 6 eggs, and you don't need 6 eggs, but someone 4 streets away has a pint of milk and you want the milk. This app, you put it into your ordinary cell phone, your ordinary mobile phone, you put it into this app, I'm looking for this, I'm looking for milk. It will actually give you the person's details and you then do a transaction with them and you will do the exchange. You physically have to go and do the exchange, but it will do that exchange. So it's not like PayPal or eBay because this will exchange it. If you are a person that doesn't have any money at all, but you're physically capable, and you say, I will dig your garden, and you're a dentist, and will you please pull my tooth out because I can't afford the medical bills, but I'm happy to dig your garden for you. And the app will say, okay, so many hours of digging a garden is equal, and we're going to call the currency a win after its inventor, Winston Keech. So we would initially put £1 or $1 equals 1 win. So you would then trade so many hours of your work for something else. Now, if you're a business and you are a shopkeeper and you've got let's have 100 tins of sparkling water or 100 bottles of sparkling water, and they have a sell-by date for 2 weeks' time, and you're not going to get rid of them. Well, you can do a deal with them at another shop, and you can trade what you've got, something they've got. If you are a big company, like a motor car company, and you've got 20 limousines that you're not going to sell, there's no way you're going to sell them. This app would allow you to trade with an advertising company who might say, give us 3 or 4 of your limousines and we will give you free airtime on a national television. So this is designed for ordinary people, for the middle range and for the top range. But it is designed to actually show people that there is another way to trade by valuing people's effort and work and not just purely putting a price on it. It's also about saying, look, if the system comes down and you go to the cash machine and you put your card in the wall and it doesn't give you any money, and it's not likely to for a number of days, if you have this system, you can trade. You can actually trade, and if there's a devaluation, which I'm expecting at some point this year, that will not devalue the system. So if you have 100 wins in our system and suddenly outside...
Hang on, Simon. Simon, give me a second.
System, it doesn't devalue.
Sorry, Simon. Your signal has degraded considerably. Let me just...
I think we're...
Yeah, of course. Let me just...
JP, I think we're...
Just gonna call you back. And reset the call. Find some different IP addresses. Lock onto the database. And that sounds a bit better. Okay, hello. So, yeah, Simon, are you with me?
JP, it is just absolutely shows that basically what's happening here is we're talking about planet changing.
Exactly.
And that was absolutely key, right on the mark. So I am going to go on a bit more because these nasty people don't want this to get out.
Can I call your cell phone?
One way or the other.
Can I call you on your cell
yes,
phone?
Yes, you can. Do you have the number for it?
Yeah, I'll just, it should be ringing any second now. And, then we'll bring you in on hopefully we'll have a much more stable signal on the cell phone. Is it ringing? Oh, you put it in the other room, didn't you? You put your cell phone in the other room. That's right. Yeah. Okay. This might take a little while. So, Simon, can you hear me on this end?
Well, I've got my phone.
Right. Okay.
Perfectly well. There's no interference this end. So it's obviously once it leaves me and the information is going to you, that's when it's being hit.
Right. Okay.
But I can hear you fine.
Okay then. Right. Okay. So yeah, if you go back to your, you giving a rap about the being able to exchange. What's interesting is that, a lot of companies actually do that anyway at the moment, in the general business. At the moment. That there is a barter system that they use. Not many people know about it, but you can, exchange hotel rooms for limousines or extra to order, or computers that have been overbatched or stuff like that. Industries is doing this. So it's like all the systems are already here. It's just nobody knows about them.
The thing is, JP, they're not coordinated. And this would be for everybody, whether they're India, Venezuela, the States, Britain, doesn't matter. It wouldn't just be for the elite, it would be for everybody. And it wouldn't be controlled by a corporation. And what we want to do is everyone who buys into the system has a vote. And at the end of the year, we would ask people to put forward good causes. I don't mean a good cause like this charity or that charity. They might actually have some pretty big planet-changing views. And then we would fund whatever we could, maybe the first top 3. But it would be done by the users themselves would vote what they wanted. So really what we want to do is to provide a system that provides people with the means to survive if there was a financial crash. Provides business to keep ticking. We do need business to tick over. Provide because they employ people as jobs. Gives stability and a structure during a very difficult time. But it educates people that money is not the sole reason that the sole reason we should live is to help each other, to be good, and to try and live by an example of pureness. And that's what we do on this planet. We learn mistakes and we learn, and hopefully we learn and we try and change. So by contrasting this system with the current system, I hope that people who have no knowledge of World Spirit Radio will suddenly say, well, these guys can do it. Why can't this bank do it? So anyway, what we're doing is we are in the process of trying to find funding for it. We need a lot of money because we need programmers. We've got programmers already lined up. These are the same programmers that are known to win. We have everything ready to roll, but we don't have the money to do it. Now, I'm not putting a call out for money. That's not what I'm doing. I don't want a call out for money for this project. I just want a call out for consciousness, that this planet must move away from the concept of electronic money that has no value whatsoever, folding bits of paper that mean nothing. And we must move to a system that is barter trade. And then from that we can do something else. So I'm just getting this out in a different way to consciousness now, because we must have this on this planet. We must break the stranglehold of the banks. The banks control us. You have a house, you pay a mortgage on that house, you gain that house, and then you die, and the government then charges you money for selling your house to pass that money on or pass that house on to your children. So everything is literally about taking money off you. And we need to move to a system that's more equitable and more fair and based on love. So that's what I'm doing. I'm just saying to people that we are working on something, and please bear that in mind. And JP, I know you've very graciously accepted to be one of the guiding lights on this project because of your tremendous experience in Lex.
Simon, there seems to be something like almost covering the microphone. Is there a cat on the laptop or something? That's weird. Now your sound is just like swishy sound. How the hell? No, so it's all, is there something on top of the laptop?
No. Nothing.
Oh, how really bizarre. It's just doing really strange things. When you listen to the tape of this, you'll hear what's going on. All right. Okay. Well, let's keep going and, let's go back to the question, shall we?
Well, in a minute. JP, we know then that this is planet changing. To have this level of interference like this tells me that someone is very scared of this concept. Anyway, yeah, let's go to the questions now. Thank you.
Okay, so this is from Silver Lightning. Dear Simon, what is the significance of the galactic wave that has recently passed through our region of space, especially on an interdimensional level? How does this one in particular relate to the energetic changes unfolding at this time? Does it mark the beginning of a temporal cycle or epoch like the Yuga that was described by the long count of the Mayans, or perhaps even more universal than that? Would very much appreciate any insight you can on the matter. Share on the matter. Love to you. Godspeed to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, hopefully you can hear me.
Okay. You're a bit in the back of the box. I'll ride the volume as you speak. I'll keep it even for people.
Okay. Right. There have been a heck of a lot of energy waves that have been coming in recent years, and certainly in recent months they've been like thick and fast. Most of the energy waves have been priming human consciousness, but the last few have been to actually shunt or push along. But it's not just been on an energy level, it's been on a physical level, and very many spiritual people have been reporting lethargy, exhaustion, like they've been up all night, feeling that they're quite shocked or quite fractious. This is because the physical is now being energized as much as the spiritual. And so we'll begin to outstrip our physical bodies, and then our physical bodies have to catch up. Then our energy body moves forward again, and the physical catches up. And these waves that are coming through now are purely and simply designed to push humanity to a point that we, as a majority, become so aware that we see through everything that's been placed to us. And that's what's happening. That's what 2017 is about. 2017 is about a time of consciousness movement where people say, I'm not having that. I can see what that is. You know, if you did the Twin Towers now, there would only be a very small percentage of people that would buy the establishment's lie. They just wouldn't, because we've all moved on so much. And a lot of this, not entirely, but a lot of it is due to these energy galactic waves that are bathing both the energy of the planet and the physical part of the planet. And we are biological beings, and our physical bodies are being interacted with. So you're absolutely right that these waves are key to the advancement of humanity, and they can't stop them. You see, that's the point. They do what they can with Wi-Fi. They bombard us with HAARP. They try everything they can to try to disrupt this natural God-type energy, but they can't. And they just hell-bent on trying to prevent humans from advancing. What they're doing is slowing up the process. They are slowing the process, but they can't stop it. And that's what all of this modern technology is about. Much of it is trying to derail us, but it won't work. So it's a really good question. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Andy, I love your work. Thank you so much. I would also love to see the different movements and individuals who are working for a more free and benevolent society to support each other. I got the feeling that Dr. Greer is denying the existence of malevolent aliens because he may have a part Draco inside himself. All right, okay, let's not talk about Dr. Greer.
Oh no,
Yeah.
no, we won't talk about Mr. Greer, but we will talk about the topic. Or I will talk about the topic. You don't have to be involved, JP. Many people have a part of their soul, which could be one group or another group, but it's the choice you make. So, I've always, that's why I think people who are trolls or whatever the term is, shills or whatever it is, they have a problem, because I've always said from day one I have a portion of me that's reptilian. But I made a choice. I made a choice not to be like them. I made a choice to stand with humanity and be different, because I wanted freedom for the human race. I'm in a human body, therefore I must have chosen to be human, for God's sake. I'm not in a reptilian body, I'm in a human body. So if you feel that way, then you will say, look, there are malevolent aliens. There are bad aliens, not just reptilians, for goodness sake. There's a whole host of bad guys out there. There's a whole host of good guys, but the vast majority are not interested one way or the other. Now, to say that or to have no debate about malevolent aliens is not to give the topic a full coverage. It is totally wrong to come at it from one viewpoint. There are people that say all aliens are good. There are another group of people that say all aliens are bad. Well, okay, I defy anyone to get 50 people in a room and tell me that all of those 50 people are good or all of those 50 people are bad. Why would the aliens be any different from us? So, when I've spoken, I've said there are good aliens and there are bad aliens, but the vast majority in the middle don't give a damn. They'll just go with whoever or whatever, or they'll be totally disinterested. So I'm always suspicious of any commentator who will not move from their position. And I gave an example 7 years ago when I approached the British UFO group, which is the only, in those days, the only UFO group that was available. And I spoke to one of their coordinators, and she said, "Oh, I don't believe in aliens. Everything is ghosts, or everything is angels." And I just laughed out loud and said, "You're in an alien, support group, or you're in a group that investigates aliens, but you've already made your mind up. It's all about ghosts or angels. How on earth can you possibly be independent?" And so this is the point, that many people will form an opinion based on their own values and not take interest of the evidence around them. And we must always look at the evidence and go with the evidence. So that's my answer. So no, I don't mind talking about Mr. Greer sometimes.
Oh, okay. Yes, right. Now, from Shari, who, remember I showed you the scarf. Anyway, she knitted the scarf. Hello, Simon. I hope you and your family are doing well during this incredibly difficult shift we are experiencing. I pose this question on behalf of many friends who are extremely concerned. They have been spraying chemtrails heavily every single day for months. There are so many people that are sick and suffering. We are trying to figure out a way to help end this. Is there something that we can do, or does this need to play itself out between the cabal and the alliance? I think of you often and send much love from across the miles. Smile.
Thank you ever so much. Thank you so much for thinking about me and other people and having just love in your heart. We went through a phase about a year ago now when the chemtrails reduced dramatically in the United Kingdom by 75% and reduced by about 25 to 30% in the US. And this was because of a power vacuum that occurred at the very top families who were authorizing black budgets for the spraying. Those power vacuums have been filled, and this is the greatest answer to very misguided people who say, "Oh, all the bad guys have been rounded up." They've all been rounded up. They're all being hunted down. Well, why have we still got chemtrails being sprayed? Okay. The last 3 months have seen more chemtrails sprayed in Britain than I think we've seen for a number of years. And I bet you that's the same in America and in mainland Europe. And I talked earlier in our show literally about we are in this no man's land at the moment where no one organization now has got ascendancy. And because no one's challenging the chemtrails at that level, they are just going, as we say in Britain, hell for leather. They are pouring it out, but not just that. I want people to be very, very attentive here. They are heavily seeding with chemtrails and then firing HAARP through it. Now you'll know when HAARP has been used through a chemtrail because it creates furrows like a farmer would plough a field. So you will see the chemtrails, but cutting across them longitudinally, you will see fan shapes, lots and lots of little lines or ridges or furrows. And what they're doing is they are electrically exciting the particles in the chemtrails to spread them further, a wider field dispersion, and also to try to activate some of the semi-sentient contents of these chemtrails. So if anybody says to you that everyone's been rounded up, the good guys are in charge, we're just 2 days away or we're 3 weeks away, the white hats are doing this, and it's nonsense. Nonsense in the sense that we are 3 days away from winning the battle. We're not. We've moved a long way positively, and we certainly are in a much stronger position than we were 3 months ago or 6 months ago, but the battle is not yet won. Sometimes this information is put out to make people think, oh, I can sit back. I don't need to be so attentive, or I don't need to do this. We've done it. No, we haven't. We haven't done it yet. How do we stop it? That's got to come from the military. When Donald Trump becomes president, you will see a reduction in the chemtrails. It won't stop, but we'll go back to what it perhaps was 2 years ago. When an area is being hit by it, it rather depends on what they're using. They'll either use a bacteria or a virus, which it'll be in a gel to keep the organism alive while it's falling through the atmosphere. And if you see sticky stuff on the ground, that is a bacterial or viral attack on people. It's usually aluminum, tiny bits of metal. There are other things which are quite sinister. You think that's sinister. There are some other things that are even more sinister to do with fourth dimensional entities. But the only way to do it is firstly to have the most healthy diet you can. Secondly, to believe that you will not succumb to whatever they're going to do to you. You say, don't deny what's happening. Say, I have moved beyond it. And not in every case, but in most cases that will actually keep you from it. People will devise certain structures or sculptures or machines, and some of those things with orgonite or combination of orgonite and certain metals in certain ways will have an effect on some of the metals that are being used in the spray. But the best way to combat these sprays, which are designed to weaken the human body, is to have a very healthy lifestyle and to have a very positive outlook and belief that this will not affect you, that we are going to be successful. That at the moment is our strongest defense. It's a very good question. Thank you.
So, Paul from Newcastle in the chat room says, tell Simon you know someone near who clears chemtrails. He's got various chemtrail cleaning abilities as well as devices. So that's quite interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it mentioned that there are certain devices or sculptures which can be used, but they only clear in that vicinity. Obviously, I'm talking planet-wide. How do we stop these things planet-wide? How do we stop them country-wide? There is the technology through certain individuals to clear in the local environment. But, what we need is people not to do this full stop. Don't do it. Why do you want to do it? Why do you want to hurt people? What God's name is the point in trying to oppress people? What's the matter with you people? You're so sick. And there is a percentage of people at the top of the food chain who are mentally sick. There's no doubt about it. They are psychopaths. They are absolutely round the twist. And they will do these things because they believe that it will get them what they want. For ordinary average people, it's just incomprehensible that somebody could come up with a devious plan to inject aviation fuel with something. And the pilots of these airplanes, most of them haven't a clue what's going on. Some of them do, but most of them don't. And spray over population centres. How corrupt and infected would your mind be to have to do that? And of course, the vast majority of people who are good people on the planet just can't believe that people in power would do that. And that's the trick they use. They use the naivety and the good well-meaningness of ordinary people as the cover for all this evil doing. And it's for those of us who do stick our heads up above the parapet to keep on banging away at this and saying it's there, the evidence is there, and these people have no right to be in the position they're in. And things are changing. We are, I said, 3 months, 6 months, a year ago, we are in a stronger position, but the battle is not yet won. So thank you. Yes, there are people who do have certain devices which help in a local way.
And he's also saying he's doing it. Yeah, but it's going back to the source of it. Who makes the chemtrails? Who's doing it? And, what is the thing that's sustaining? What's keeping the funding going? Somebody's paying for it. It's expensive.
It is hugely expensive. And that's why, I'm not going off the topic, but again, we mustn't always assume that everyone who listens to this is an old hand at it. We do bring new people on. There were many reasons why see if we get cut off again. There were many reasons why the Twin Towers came down. But one of the reasons that's not really talked about greatly, and it's a shame, is that it was a heist. Apart from the Twin Towers, there was another building, Building 7, I think it was.
The mysterious Building 7 that was still there when the BBC announcer said it would just fallen down, and then it fell down 5 minutes later. Like she was ahead of the script, obviously. Yeah.
In fact, when she was commentating it, the building was right behind her. You could still see it.
That's right, there's the arrow then. There it is.
But the point is that what's not widely known, even in our alternative industry, is that was part of the gold that from Fort Knox or the Federal Reserve was being stored. And when that building was brought down, the Bushes, the famous Bushes presidents, made off with that gold. That was one of the covers. There were other reasons why the Twin Towers came down, but one of the major reasons was to physically steal the gold bullion that was stored in Building 7. Now, when organizations are that powerful and will do that, then they believe they're above the law. And when organizations believe they're above the law, they will do anything because they think that they can't be challenged. And so many of these things that are done by people who are not subject to the same laws that we are. And that means we've got a two-tier society. Those people who abide by the law because they think that's the right thing. Those that make the laws, but then those that make the people that make the laws. So those people who are in positions above us and not the ones in charge. It is those above them who are in charge. And when ordinary people begin to understand the structure of the society they live in, they'll go through a phase of, first of all, shock, then anger, then terrible embarrassment that how could we not see the truth? How is it that I never saw this? How could I be so stupid? And then hopefully they'll come out the other end, which is right, what are we going to do about it? What can we do? So the human mind has got to go through this process before it will come through to, right, we need to do something. And that's what we want. We want lots and lots of people to see through all the trickery, and then not to go on a rampage to lynch people or chop them up, but basically to say, how can we make sure this never happens again? Because time and time again, there's been a war of some sort, and the call has gone out, we must never have a war again. And it's just a trick to get in there, rob the country that you've beaten, and then design so that in another 30, 40 years there's another war. Because as long as the same people are coming in at the top of the ladder, you'll get the same issues coming up again and again and again. So we have to remove the top level of people. This isn't going to be very popular amongst them, of course. They have to be removed, or at least they have to change their ethos totally, so that we bring in people who are not hell-bent on killing others. So I'm very passionate about it because I understand, and I've seen, and I know what these people are like. And you have to be mentally.
Yep, lost you again, Simon.
Typical, absolutely typical.
It's what it sounds like. It sounds like somebody's putting their finger on your microphone.
It's crazy.
That is very strange.
No, not at all.
Yeah, it sounds like that.
No, somebody somewhere is doing something and they don't like what I'm talking about.
Maybe
typical.
It's a fourth dimensional finger.
No, well, it's somebody very close to the positions of power on this planet who don't like the fact that I'm passionate and I put a lot of energy onto the planet. And, we all do this. All of us should do it, but maybe this radio show now is having a bit of impact.
Good.
And people don't like it happening. And that's why I'm absolutely determined that we're going to see this through. We're sick of it. We've had enough of it. People need to be given the truth. The human race, JP, are grown up and old enough to have the truth laid before them and then let the people decide. Now, I've gone clean before with my grandfather who said, the people can't be trusted. We have to make the decisions, because he was an elite Illuminati. Now, I don't come from that viewpoint. My viewpoint is give people all the facts, let them choose, and you know what? They'll choose the right course. And every time these people interfere with these communications, it's just more evidence that's what they're trying to do.
Well, that's very strange. Okay, let's just move on. We got 30 minutes. Right, oh yes, now, here's a question that, really close to my heart because it's about my birthday, right? So, Reshma. Simon, Peter Paget talked about March 18th, 2017 being a, quote, window of karma. What does he mean by that? Do you know anything about that? By 2019, we should hopefully be in a new paradigm, as you explained on Project Camelot. What changes will we notice? Thank you very much for your support to humanity. I thoroughly enjoy your radio show. God bless you and JP. XX.
Well, thank you for your kind words. Every little helps. Thank you. I've met Peter Paget as a genuine man. I don't have a problem with him. Clearly has strong connections, as have I, with security services. He is passionate about this country, that's Great Britain, believes in Britain, is very proud of it, as actually am I. So, got no problem with Peter. In fact, actually, Peter did invite me and a couple of others down to his place for a cup of tea. But I got really busy and couldn't keep the appointment, which is a great shame because I would love to have a cup of tea with Peter Paget. We've got so much in common and, but I've just been so busy that it's just been impossible. Not that I expect he's probably listening, but anyway, March is the key month. Anyone, and I include Peter, who's got his ear to the ground, will know that March is key for Great Britain. I'm expecting some considerable changes in March. I can't give the date of 25th. I mean, Peter's giving 25th. He's obviously got something there. But all I've said is that March is an important point. You probably go for the 18th as a pretty good date on March, but I would just highlight March as the important point. The reason there is that a lot of things are going to come to fruition in March, both financial, political, military, and energy-wise. So if there was a great fleet of alien spacecraft that flew over a major city some point in March and the established news ran with that story, I wouldn't at all be surprised. If there was an organization that said it had been in communication with aliens and this got wide world coverage, I wouldn't be at all surprised. If banks collapsed, cash machines went off, I wouldn't be surprised. And I don't think Peter would either. So what Peter's saying is that March is, for him, the key point. And from that moment onwards, although things might be a bit difficult, we are on the road to healing. We're on the road to recovery, the new paradigm which so many of us have spoken about. And anyone who's listened to me knows that I've talked about January, February and March of 2017 as being the key period. And all Peter's picking up on is perhaps the hiatus point, the pinnacle of the mountain. So what will it mean when we come out the other end? Well, it won't just be immediate. It will be over a period of months. It depends if Wynne and I can get our project out. It depends if many other people can get projects out, because we need to offer an alternative to the system that's on the table. If I have a system, we'll call it System 1, and we lay it out on the table and then System 1 collapses and the public say, well, that didn't work. What have you got? And you say, well, I've got System 1. Yeah, but that didn't work. Yeah, but that's all we've got. Then you're just recreating the problem. If people can come along and say, we've got System 2, then you are changing the tools that will change the paradigm. So it's about not just the consciousness of humanity, but it's what humans will go with. People are terrified generally to walk through the door. They'll need somebody else. And I'll give you an example of this. You go into a shop and the shop is empty. There's nobody in the shop, but you go in and other people now walking along will see someone in the shop and they'll go in. That's exactly the consciousness of humanity, because we've been conditioned and controlled for thousands of years, and this is what we've got to break. So how will it be? Well, it's got to be a damn sight better than it is now. I would dearly like to see a world where homelessness is eradicated, poverty is eradicated, people who can't afford healthcare, people who live in other countries that can't have clean drinking water, people who can't afford shoes on their feet. How is it, for God's sake, that people in my own country are sitting in cold, damp conditions under railway bridges because the system has failed them, and yet there's a football player for some football club in London earning £100,000 a week. How is this fair? How is this right? What sort of a place are we living in that allows this? And this is going back to the point that a Lyran or somebody with a very strong ethical base would come here and say, this is a mad planet. You're all mad. This is crazy. Don't you see it? And so, we've got to change it. We can't go on living like this. It's false. We didn't choose this. We've been controlled into it, not been mind controlled, but we've been given a structure and a framework and told that's the only way forward. You've got to do this or else you're cast out from society. And we've got to break that. And that's what I and others are absolutely determined to do. Good question. Thank you.
Indeed. So, now this is from Anne. Simon, you have mentioned that you know of a special technique for those with a high degree of reptilian energy who find it hard to meditate. Are you able to talk about this now?
Yes, I can, but I do prefer to do it on a one-to-one basis when I consult people, simply because, thank goodness, we're all different. We all are different. Our energy frequency is slightly different. The way we learn is different, and our values are different. So what will work for one probably won't work for another. And so what I tend to do is to meet somebody, talk to them, and say, right, well, based on what I'm reading, try this, because this is the closest to your soul group. I'll give an example. I've got a percentage of reptilian in me, and the traditional meditation, I can't do it. I can't do it. But I know I need to do it, because the traditional form of meditation is the right way to do it. So what I do is I do things that connect me with the planet that you wouldn't call meditation, but bring about a state of meditative contemplation. And then from that, I can then go into the traditional meditation stage. So I'm not offering an alternative. What I'm offering is a in-between stage to take somebody who is hardwired not to meditate. That's what it's all about. And to slowly get them into a framework that allow them to meditate. But I can't give you a blanket session because everyone's different. But it's a really good point. And do you know what? There are literally millions of people on this planet who would love to meditate but are constrained by control systems. So thank you for the question.
Well, there you go. Simon Kajungal asks, what is the meaning behind Trump's draining the swamp? Does it refer to more than just getting rid of bad guys? I'm sure he was talking about other kinds of guys. What do you think?
Yes, he had to be very guarded, and it was a very catchy slogan. People thought it was about corruption. People thought it was the swamp of just corruption. What he actually meant was Washington, the number of people who don't seem to have the love of the human race. Look, Trump is a billionaire. Trump will have met these people. Clearly they disgust him. He will know that if they had a free hand, they'd kill him. He knows that. So drain the swamp actually means all of the evil doing, because, corruption is part and parcel of what life with money is about. But he's talking about things that we talk about on our radio show. He's talking about Satanists. He's talking about pedophiles. Why did he dislike Hillary Clinton so much? Was it just that she was a candidate running against him? Was it because of what she'd been involved with? And I think it's what she was involved with, and the very, very well hidden, what I would call it, the girl aeroplane, the weekly flight out in a certain aeroplane that she would take. He knows about that. The security services know about it, but they had to keep their mouth shut because Clinton was destined to become president. Now she's not. So I don't know how much of the clearing of the swamp there will be, but he doesn't just mean people taking backhanders of money. Give me $100,000 and I'll let you build a supermarket on that store. That's not what he's talking about. He's talking about people who danger to humanity is far greater than that. So Trump is a danger to the establishment. That's why they're turning on him. That's why all the established media attack him, because he is a threat to them. Good question.
Excellent question. And that's about it for the second show of this month. I hope you're feeling a lot better. Do you want to give us a health report, Simon? Status update? How's all your stomach and, your general health?
Well, what actually happened was that a group of people on Facebook and elsewhere did a meditation to send me some strength, and I thank them all for that. God bless you, because hell knows that the bad guys target me as much as they can. So when people just get together and do that, then, it's a counterbalance. And, there's a war going on this planet, and the war isn't just there out in the distance. It's on individuals, individuals who, whatever, pose a threat to the status quo will be targeted. So there are too many people who sit in their armchairs and don't do anything about it. But fortunately now more and more people are either donating or forming action committees, or forming psychic groups, healing groups, and sending energy. And yeah, it gives me the energy to keep going. I know when people are thinking well of me. I know when they're sending me positive energy, because, that's why I do this, because if there wasn't a single person left on the planet who cared, then I might as well just go. There's no point. But as long as there are people out there who want the truth, who believe in the truth, and want a better world, then I and you and everyone else will keep fighting. So, health is a bit better because people are helping me, and that's how it should be. So thanks ever so much to them, and thank you, JP, for your wonderful radio show. This isn't my radio show. This is yours because you created this. I just am a speaker here. I'm not important. I'm just an ordinary person who has a message and is prepared to die to get that message out. That's the story. That's why I will not be shut up. That's why I'm going to go on and do this until we're successful. And you give me and others the chance to get that message out. And we can send strength and new ideas and alerts and warnings to people who deserve to be tipped off about what's happening. So thank you, JP. Thank you, and to all those who support you as well.
Thank you very much, Simon. This has been Connecting Consciousness with Simon.